The Square Ball Podcast.
Hello there, welcome to the show. Welcome back to another edition of the Square Ball Podcast. We're talking about kits at the minute. It's me, Dan, with Michael, and with Ed Cowburn, who designed the Leeds kits for last season. We did an episode a couple of days ago talking about kits and the smiley and how exciting it is to potentially have it back this coming season as we understand it. The stories are leaking out, aren't they now? I don't know. We will see how that one lands. Very well, I suspect. All led us onto the thought, and because we've got our own kit out at the minute, haven't we? We've put a Square Ball shirt out about fantasy kits.
I will hold it up now.
Yeah, you can grab that at thesquareball.net. It's been manufactured by Admiral if you are on the video version. If you're not on the video version, if you're on the audio version, it's the Admiral sash design that Crystal Palace had at the back, most famously at the back end of the sort of 70s, wasn't it, that one? And again, if you are on the video version, you will see the kit that Ed is wearing, first of all, the Leeds kit of that time, made by Admiral, and also holding up the book with the Palace shirt in it that came out at that time. So it's a direct, and the book is called Studs.
It's a good book. It's the greatest retro football annual the world has ever seen. No one is going to sing that.
But it's a grand old kit, the one that you've got on, the Admiral one with so it's got the alternate blue and yellow stripes around the collar, the Admiral piping down the shoulders, smiley badge, which is what we were just mentioning before, blue and yellow embroidered Admiral. And that is the template that Leeds had at the same time that Palace had the sash, wasn't it?
So I think Palace had, they wore a sash for, I think, about 14 years, starting in about 72, 73. I think it was originally Umbro, and then I think Admiral got it, I think, in 77. So yeah, that's probably the most well-known one. And obviously,
I was going to say famously, because people go Palace, red and blue, huh? But there was a white kit they had at the time with the blue and the red diagonal stripe. Sorry, go on.
And and I think it's important to sort of place this in time of, for those that don't know, Admiral literally changed the game. They came onto the scene in the early 70s, and it was an absolute revolution. It sounds ridiculous to sort of say it now, but it was a revolution just to have piping, and Leeds were the first club that, got a deal. The money that was given by Admiral famously went into the player pot. It wasn't to the club. It was actually to the players. And Don made that happen. He then obviously went into England and changed it there as well. And at the same time, Admiral started selling replica kits to start with, just to kids, to indoctrinate them when they're young. I think it's really interesting that you kind of when you've done this kit to sort of almost go, and that's what we're going to do, but almost go like, what if they didn't have this kit that I'm wearing? What would it potentially have been as an alternative? And I was saying to you before we're recording, it's a really interesting time. Is that kind of late 70s? Post European Cup final. Jimmy Armfield sort of leaving. Jock Stein for 44 days before he got offered the Scotland job, and then getting Jimmy Adamson from Sunderland, and it was kind of the breakup of the Golden Team. But there's sort of some real shining lights there, and I think, it was around the time when I was just coming into the world, and so I don't know anything, from being there, but you sort of think, the way that the 70s were, it was a pretty dark period. Then you got punk coming around, you've got the kind of long hair, and it's a very specific look that was around, with sort of Bay City Rollers, and then. Was it sort of Tony Curry playing? Really worth checking out. Go onto YouTube and check out the goals against Southampton in '78. That he was wearing this, and it's an absolute perler. He gets it on the edge of the box, cuts inside, and it sort of almost Somerville-esque curls it into the kind of that far right hand post and at the cop end. He's wearing this one. It almost feels like that period was like this sort of microcosm of what Leeds is all about, of not quite being there and like upset, sort of lots of managers and
the come down
fans.
The come down from the party is what it was.
Yes, yeah. There's this brilliant thing that Jimmy Armfield said when he was just about to leave. I didn't realise he was a lay preacher, and he was talking at York Minster to scouts and brownies and stuff. I don't know why, but and he said that LUFC stood for Letters Face Challenges.
Which is the most Jesse Marsh thing before Jesse Marsh was around, isn't it? But it was different times, I suppose.
Yeah, no, very much so. But you're right. That, and it's interesting, again, talking about the peacock badge that you were involved in putting onto the kits from last season, Ed. Both from this kind of fallow period, it's interesting that they're tapping back into the design of that era and repurposing it again. And you look at the range of like Leeds badges and how it's informed stuff over the years and how it's kind of complicated our view of Leeds United's identity over the years, because we've seen so many. I used to hate the fact that Leeds had so many badges, and now actually I quite like it. It's pretty cool. We've had some really unique designs over the years.
When are you changing the square ball badge?
To what, the script?
Yeah, I don't know.
Should maybe we should. Maybe we should.
We have put the original on a T-shirt, haven't we?
Yes.
Within the past 6 months or so.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Have you got any more of those to vlog as well?
We have actually, yeah. If you look at the website.
if you do want any of this stuff, have a look at the squareball.net. But so fantasy Leeds shirts. And Michael, you are sat in a Boca Juniors shirt, which
it turns out it's remarkably hot it's a very warm day today.
So just describe that for the audio listener. It's well, you know what a Boca Juniors home kit looks like. It's the one that Leeds fans always famously, the Boca ones, go, that should be the Leeds kit. That should be, because they have the blue. It's blue home kit with the yellow band across the middle, and then the away kits are always traditionally white with yellow and blue styling. So it's kind of the flip of what we want, isn't it?
I might be mentioning Boca Juniors as well later on.
Well, that's why. Well, this one. I mean, this is a version. It's not an original. This is a version 1995. It's a remake of that kit. This is actually darker than the blue they have now. They have more of a Leedsy blue on the,
which is the original blue. That's kind of royal blue is what they always had.
But the collar on that you're wearing, it's oppressively high. Like if you remember the 1996 Essex one that we played in the League Cup final in, and all the players were ripping it so they could just breathe and swallow. But
I'm going to move to one side of my mic because if you're watching the video, I'm hidden behind it. But yeah, it's got a weird little, almost like a fake collar underneath
like
the collar.
Like a fake V-neck collar.
It looks like it might open.
It looks like it should have a button.
Yeah, it does not.
It doesn't have a button then, no.
No, but this is the
collar itself. Sorry, the fold-over element of the collar reminds me of the sort of the promotion 1990-ish era collar.
Yeah, but yeah, part of the reason this was remade is Diego Maradona wore it as well, which is I think with old shirts, it's hard to sometimes separate a shirt from a player, isn't it? And if like the Holland shirts, for example, you just think of Ruud Gullit looking amazing in them.
Yeah,
as we're kind of Euros era, it's one of those that you just and like Van Basten scoring the goal in it. There are moments of players in shirts as well that I think obviously will add to that.
Let me use that as a jump-off point then, because one of the Fantasy Leeds kits I was thinking about was that Adidas era Euro 88 Ruud Gullit, Van Basten, the speckles, basically. The kind of the little gradient fade across it. Don't know how it would have worked on a home shirt, but I would be interested to see how it would have looked in a yellow and blue away version if Leeds had done that in that era.
I'm sure, weirdly, that template from Adidas is called an Ipswich.
Right.
Like dragging that from my mind, which is really bizarre. That you kind of when the naming conventions come out, they decided that one was going to be Ipswich, because I don't think Ipswich ever wore it. Just we're just going through the list.
I've just Googled it. You're right.
Is it right? Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. If you Google Adidas
Ipswich
template, it's there. Yeah. They might have done actually. Let's have a look. There is an Ipswich shirt. Yeah, knocking about. Oh no, it's not. It's it's a foreign club, but it's blue. It caught my attention. But yeah, that's interesting because was it Russia who had it as well? The CCCP top.
I think that was, for me. That was 1986 was the first World Cup I remember, but the kits when they started to get really interesting was that one. That's the one that really stands out. I remember watching that final because Soviet Union at the time, they had a mad kit that was like red and white, sort of splashes all over it, and it as if someone had spray painted a tree bark. It was really, really bizarre. Great, that's a great looking kit as well. It was one of the first ones I kind of went to. Is like, if you're going to think of iconic kits of all time, then there's a few that always stand out. Holland 88, which if you get an original, you're sat on a bit of a gold mine. I was lucky enough recently to go to Classic Football Shirts and have a bit of a a wander around and got shown around, and they have a room that's like got all their kind of player edition, really rare stuff. And they had a 88, I think one of the substitutes. Oh no, it was a Koeman. It was a number 4 Koeman. I don't think he played in the Euros, but it was it's obviously they'd have it for 2 years. That was hung up. That was a pretty amazing thing to see in real life. Was it like the Declaration of Independence? People have to wear special like white gloves, to not touch it and things. I don't know. It's in my bag, so I'll.
Being English as we are, I wonder what the reaction in the Netherlands was to that shirt, because it's not actually very orange compared to most of them. Like, it's their iconic thing, isn't it? Is that they wear this incredibly bright shirt and all the supporters wear it. That one is actually, because of the gradients in it, it's actually quite washed out looking.
And they also, up to that point, I think they'd always had like black as the sort of secondary colour. And then I think on that is that the Adidas stripes are white.
Yeah. So I've got it up on screen now and just looking at it. So it's got it's effectively like a chevron arrow pattern. I didn't realise it was actually quite arrowy going from the navel up to the neck.
Yes, through the centre of it.
It's got a little bit of the bruised banana Arsenal about it.
Yeah, which I was going to come on to as one of my potentials for a fantasy Leeds kit. But the Adidas stripes are it's white, orange, white, but there's nothing sort of edging it. It just backs straight onto the orange pattern, and the collar is predominantly white with orange piping. But then the Adidas stylings and the badge, they're in black.
I think if you want to sort of do some how would this actually look? If you go into Museum of Jerseys, there's a guy called John Devlin who runs that, and he kind of draws every kit every season, and he takes kind of fantasy kit ideas and puts them online, and I think that he's done, if I remember rightly, he's done those Leeds kits, and they do look pretty smart, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, the Adidas Ipswich template, actually, if you Google it, Adidas Ipswich template, there is a yellow shirt there. Somebody must have the team wear version of it that you could buy to knock around in your Sunday League team, and it's there in yellow and blue. So you can imagine what Leeds might have looked like back in that era. Just on a similar tip, actually, I want to propose, and this taps back into your kit design, Ed, with the alternate Adidas stripes on it. The Liverpool one, when Liverpool went absolutely nuts, and I think MLS have kind of brought it back in recent years because they have standardised kits, don't they, in the MLS?
They do, yeah.
The famous Liverpool 3 stripes that went right over one shoulder but were massive, and then the same on the shorts but on the opposite side. Imagine that as a Leeds kit, a home kit with alternate blue, yellow, blue Adidas stripes. That would have been absolutely incredible.
Because soon after that, I think that's when the rules started coming in, and they said you can't do that because basically you've got an enormous advert for your brand by having the 3 stripes. That's too much. So
they brought in dimensions and stuff like that. So yeah, right, that is interesting.
If you want the Leeds twist on that, I suppose you've got the early 90s Sweden kit as well, which the Brolin scored that goal in.
Is that the same template?
That was. Was Liverpool coming from both sides? Because I think the Sweden one was just the 3 stripes over one shoulder.
They did that more recently around like the sort of the abdomen, wasn't it? But I'm thinking about the one that came over the shoulder. Yeah,
yeah. That's what the Sweden kit of the early 90s had that on it.
Which would have been our away kit then, presumably, if we'd have done. Yeah.
Which the club did Adidas, they did an Icons range, didn't they? I think, was it the beginning of last season?
Yes.
That was a similar kind of that Adidas equipment vibe with both sides.
But the yellow was ridiculously pale. It wasn't a Leeds yellow.
Yeah.
Confusing. But anyway, shake of head. Don't know. What else have you got then? So those are my kind of two. I would love to see that Sweden one that you described there, Michael, but also the fantasy one with Liverpool in white with alternate stripes. Any that you would care to touch on?
On the Boca Juniors, this is as near as we got to it as a flip of it, I guess, with the yellow.
So you brought out
the blue stripe.
It's the yellow Packard Bell away shirt from back end of the 90s.
Yeah, so probably the more famous version of this is the Lazio kit, is generally what it's known as.
Yeah,
which was the more sky blue one, but this was the 3rd strip of the same season. And I think this is a great shirt, I have to say.
Is that the one we won at Chelsea in? Could have been.
Oh, was it when McPhail scored?
Yeah,
rings a bell.
Yeah. It might well be it. Yeah, but yeah, this is as near as we got to it. It's not quite pure in the same way as the Boca Juniors kits seem to be, but it's as close as we've come.
Should I tell you about my Boca Juniors that I found?
Go on.
I think is perfect. So you probably all remember, and I'm sure hopefully it's on screen if you watch it on YouTube. The Germany 1990 World Cup winning West Germany, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's the last time the West Germany. Really interesting. I don't know if you know the history of why the stripes are like that.
I don't, but it's they kind of come over one shoulder and then there's like a little zigzag up across the chest. Like, almost reminiscent of like the Pony logo. Do you remember the Pony shirts?
Yeah. So, but there's a really interesting reason. This was designed by a lady called Ina Frasman, or Fransman. And it was this idea that in 74 they won. So there's your right shoulder.
Yep.
And then they didn't do much at the World Cup in 78, so it dropped. Then it went up to, I think, the quarterfinals or the semi-finals in 82 and 86. And then the idea was they were going to win it in 1990. So it went back up onto the sleeves.
So it's a line graph?
It's a line graph.
Wow. That's amazing. Just as an idea, a concept for design.
It's another reason we should have had the sash shirt in the 70s to...
We're going up.
The straight downward line.
Maybe that's what the idea of when Bates did the tyre tracks. Was it Bates or was it... I don't know. It was terrible, wasn't it?
Oh, God, the...
Enterprise Insurance.
The Macron era. Yeah.
So, isn't that cool?
That's amazing and such a simple idea. What I always found fascinating about that was because being a child who grew up in the 80s and loving the Umbro designs that we had, and again, which was a template, the famous 1987 kits, the away and the home, it was a template that was around at the time. The diamond, the Umbro diamond, was very forefront in my mind. Your world's pretty small as a kid. I was obsessed with like little symbols and marks and things like that. And there are diamonds within that, and it's an Adidas product.
And the diamonds, famously on the Leeds 86-7 one were on the sleeves, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
On the front,
one on each side. Yeah, because the badge was in the middle. Yeah.
Which is pretty bizarre. But anyway, so this Germany shirt was released in 88. So it was 88 till 1990. So it ran for 2 years. But in 89, Boca Juniors had it as an away shirt.
Yep.
In the Leeds colours. And there's a young Gabriel Batistuta wearing it. But look at that. Imagine white shorts. That's a good kit.
Would you be in favour of reprofiling the stripe to fit with a Leeds trajectory in some way? Given the origin of it.
It'd be worth looking into, wouldn't it?
It'd be like that those famous Umbro templates where it just went up and down. Like,
I was going to say, the League One, it's going to have to go
I would say, was it Luton?
Quite a distance.
Luton who had that and Chelsea had that as well. Like, kind of almost like a zigzag style.
Ups and downs, right?
Yeah. Well, indeed. Yeah. Indeed, they should do something with that. Thinking about it. Yeah, Adidas, it was always the fantasy desire, wasn't it? And I go back to, I hark back to the Umbro days, but then we kind of, I very much enjoyed the Asics kits when we dabbled with that. Puma was good. And then, so we went, so post Meltdown, we went into some real kind of low points, I think.
See, I remember getting the Nike deal, though, or Nike, as I believe you'll know this. Is that how you meant to say it?
Apparently.
That's definitely how Americans do it. It was always Nike in Wakefield in the 90s.
Yeah.
But I remember that feeling like quite a step up when we got the Nike deal. It was like, oh, big boys now. This is proper premium stuff we're getting. It felt a bit like that going back to Adidas.
And they are, I mean, like the Champions League era of that first one, the V-neck, the white, the Strongbow kit, that to me is probably the peak of the mountain, I think. One of them, anyway.
Yeah, it was certainly the best of, and it was actually comfy to wear as well, because it felt like it was a transition to some breathable fabric, whereas I'd been like sweating my bollocks off in a bin bag for the previous decade.
I think it's an interesting story as well about how Admiral came back in 92, 93. Mm-hmm. And that was supposed to be like a 5-year deal, and it ended up just being one. And so, kind of in the alternative universe of we'd have stayed with Umbro, what would that have been like? Because if you look at that period, through the 90s, Umbro made some absolute bangers. So, I'm thinking about where is it? This one that's should be on your screen, which is it's the one with the laces, and Aston Villa had it as their home shirt.
Yeah. Did Ipswich have it as well?
I think Ipswich blue? Had a version as well. I've got Parma on here, obviously.
And again,
it's the Leeds
Parma,
colours.
the Leeds colours, yes, of course.
But, I think a version of that where the Parma one is yellow with blue sleeves. I kind of almost feel like if you did it the opposite of blue with yellow sleeves, that's almost harking back to kind of that is the 1940s kind of Leeds kit anyway. So it would have been a really nice sort of story to tie it back. I think that would have been, it's one of my favourite, kit templates.
Should say, by
ever.
the way, if you are on the audio version here, we've got these images on screen on the video version, so you can check that out and then have a look on YouTube for that. But that, I mean, that in itself, even in itself, the yellow with the round neck and stuff, that's an amazing away kit that we could have had potentially.
If you're on, if you're sticking in Italy as well from the same era, you've got the slightly the wrong blue, but the sort of Gascoigne era Lazio away as well, which was yellow and blue. That was another Umbro one that was quite a nice one.
Oh, there really were some amazing kits, and again, a museum of jerseys. You've done kind of like what if Leeds, stayed with Umbro. It's worth digging out.
Yeah, in fact, that you've sent me that with the Evening Post logo, and I've just realised checking back through our messages. Yeah, I always, again, talking about nostalgia reasons, always loved the Umbro kits and held on to them as kind of what everything should be going forward. Because I remember like England kit going from Umbro to Nike because Nike bought out Umbro and then just took the contracts.
Well, it's one of the things that I've got on here is, if we'd have stayed with Umbro all the way through to like you remember the tailored with Umbro period where I think that was 2010.
Was that when the Wokarati put the St George's Cross in loads of different colours?
That was the one after when Peter Saville designed it. But the one before that it'll be on screen is like the purest of just an entirely white England shirt. It's just like a polo shirt.
Yep.
But the kits around that, if you Google the tailored by Umbro stuff, it's like they've just gone, we want to make the purest, simplest, no frills, but just beautiful. And I think that's the one thing I'd say that's probably missing from Leeds kits since 74, where it's an all white shirt with no bells and whistles and just the badge, and that's it. I think your mention of the first Nike one is probably the closest we've got to in a really long time, where it's just pure white.
Yeah,
no messing, apart from the tiny little bits of yellow and blue.
I mean, Macron did have an all-white one, didn't they? But it was Macron. I think that was probably a bit of an issue for it, that it didn't
have the heritage, did it?
In the presence of it being a Macron shirt always made it feel a bit like, ugh. And I can't remember what sponsor it was either, but it had been,
is it Enterprise
32 Red on Net Flights or something? A non-premium sponsor, which will have made it feel a little bit like,
Yeah, just going back to Umbro designs, and again, it's probably speaking back to nostalgia about my own childhood, but the 1990 to 1992-ish, there was the England shirts, and it was all the diamonds of slightly different speckly colours on it. Which
World in Motion.
That's the one, yeah. And it did that run through all three designs, didn't it, I believe? Yeah. And famously, that's when they introduced, I think it was one of the first sky blue kits, wasn't it? It was kind of,
Do you know the story behind that pattern?
I don't, but I was just going to say I would love to have seen a Leeds version of that, particularly in yellow. But
the sky blue version does exist in that mashup shirt the club have done, where there's for some reason a bit of sky blue on it.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. Of course there is, yeah. Yeah.
Well, when we borrowed Man City's shirt.
Shirt we never had.
That'd be the one.
Yeah. Sorry, go and tell the story, Anna. Yeah.
So apparently the story goes that when they were designing the Umbro 1990 England kit, that they were looking around thinking about what ideas, and it shows that it was a previous time. And yeah, the story is that they were looking around the office and the sun was shining onto an ashtray, a diamond cut ashtray, and that the kind of the effect that had shining the light onto the desk was like, that looks quite good. Let's do that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But you ask people about smoking in offices these days, and you're not allowed to do it.
So that's why I always have an ashtray in my studio.
Is that right? So you can smoke around the kids.
They love it.
I'm just actually looking through these retro Umbro designs and actually talking about the zigzag design on the Germany shirt, the up and down. The Everton Umbro kits, the away one was yellow with a blue, like a graph line on it, but it kind of started in the bottom left-hand corner and went up past the badge up towards the shoulder. So it has been done.
Not as well.
Not as well. What else have you got then in terms of something you would like to have seen across the years?
Well, this is purely because I found this in my loft when I was in my loft digging for this shirt and the Leeds blue and yellow. I'm just going to retrieve this from my bag. It's a shirt I bought off eBay. I've checked my emails because I still have it. Paid £10 for this in 2008.
So describe that then for the audio version.
Yomiuri Nippon Verdi, which is they were a J League team. It's got a nice little embroidered J League badge on the sleeve as well, which is nice. It's, I suppose, the nearest Leeds kit to it would probably be the Stilton one, but it's
Oh, yeah.
but it's bolder.
It's bizarre as well. From this angle, I can almost see through the fabric.
And it is super shiny, and it's made by Mizuno. I don't feel like Mizuno have made many.
They're coming back. They've made the kits for Lazio, I think,
Is that
last
right?
season, I believe.
But Mizuno did loads of early J League kits, and they're all of a similar like madness to this.
Yeah.
Although I did look on classic football shirts. This is £300 on there.
Yeah,
Wow.
I've got to say, if there's any collectors out there, they're looking at this now and they are wetting themselves.
And what I will say is, I am prepared to give you Michael's home address for £200.
Well, I mean, just
So you could just go in and steal it.
You could probably buy it off me for £200, to be honest. It's a good price.
I believe there was a version as well. I think they were.
There's a reverse of it where it's got more of a white explosion and the base of it's green.
Has it got a Coca-Cola sponsor on it? I think as well.
Yes, I
There
think
might
there
be a
is.
version.
I was going to say, just for the audio
Yeah.
version, I realised we didn't say that is in green and white. So that if you imagine the Leeds United Stilton design, but in white, on a white base with green splash all over it.
What I do like about this shirt an awful lot is the badge is massive, and it's got sort of felty bits. It's got embroidery
It's
on it.
beautiful.
I feel like there's a level of detail and size on it which you don't get very much.
No.
Like modern badges feel they tend to be small and heat pressed.
You want the sort of thing that's going to make you topple forwards.
Ideally, yes. It weighs about 500 grams, this badge.
And isn't
That's
it
a
weird
good
though as
thing.
well that then the sponsor's logo is like the thinnest, like it's coming off effectively.
It's not,
whereas
Ed, I'm
that
trying to sell
area
this.
it looks great. It looks in keeping with the rest
Looks
of it.
very worn, Michael.
it.
Looks very tired.
Yeah, a lot of the early J League shirts just have the name of the team across the front, and then when you look at slightly later versions, because like, if you think of a similar era, actually, when Gary Lineker moved to Grand Passat, I think that just said Grand Passat across the front potentially
I think it did.
when he first moved there, because that was another shirt that you saw and it was like
Which we saw famously at Ellen Road, let's not forget.
Yes, of course.
When they played that friendly.
I was there.
Yeah, so was I.
Yeah.
So was I. Just made me think as well, actually, about more niche manufacturers. And they're still knocking about now as a sort of more of a fashion label. But Maber, who did the Barcelona kits famously like in the sort of 80s or thereabouts, similar sort of kind of fairly basic old school design, but has taken on almost an iconic status because of the time that it happened.
It's Diego Maradona as well. When you look at those Maber kits, you've got Diego Maradona, you've got young Pep, you've got
They won the European Cup, didn't they?
You've got Gary Lineker in it.
92.
Yeah, and some of the tracksuits and stuff that go with it as well. They're all really cool. But there's one of those that would be a good Leeds shirt because it's the away variant of it, which has got a downward stripe. So it's got the classic Barcelona's colours, but in a stripe down there. And also, I suppose for the Barcelona stripes, you could also do a blue and yellow variant of that, which would be, I guess, a bit like
The Asics one.
Asics.
Wow.
Which, funnily enough, a picture came up on the Facebook gives you memories of around the Brazil World Cup when I was working at ITV in Manchester. They'd built like a big beach football pitch with big screens on it and stuff, and they were getting people in to watch. And I got to play in a beach football tournament, and I was wearing my Leeds United Asics shirt whilst playing in that. I was the only one, funnily enough, wearing that exact kit. But it was that's a beauty as well. Honestly, my loft's worth absolute fortune. All the
Tens of pounds in
all
there.
the shit in there.
Hopefully the roof,
Will hold
keeps
it.
It's all in plastic bags, so my shoddy roofing won't affect the value of these items.
Everything's vacuum sealed
Exactly.
in there.
There's a sponsor mention that should happen there, surely. Somewhere.
West Yorkshire Electrical, if you want your
There you
roofing done. Yeah,
Yes. No, absolutely. Yeah. Get the professionals in to do it and so on and so forth. Well done, Ed. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for prompting us on that. Any others that spring to mind? I'm thinking about, remember when Nike took on the Leeds contract? And I was saying before, I kind of went, oh, wow, Nike. That's exciting. I did have a little bit of fear because they'd taken on the Arsenal contracts just prior to that, hadn't they, I think? And it went a bit jazzy and American. I was like, these fancy American companies coming in, because it was where all the zigzags came from, like the lightning strike almost. Which they brought back.
Yeah, they've almost made that part of their identity, I guess, over the last couple of seasons. And so, it's really interesting when, obviously now it's Adidas. Like they've taken something that, Nike did in the first place and now it's, come back. But those Arsenal kits were great. They did like sort of a light blue and a dark blue. They are some good kits. They would make brilliant Leeds kits.
So we've touched on Sweden, tick. Touched on Parma, tick. Boca Juniors, obviously, tick. They're all the ones where the obvious ones because we share colours with those nations or clubs. Any others that spring to mind that we've clearly overlooked from the lexicon of football shirts?
Probably one final mention of Parma. They were massive, weren't they, in the 90s? It's just kind of a shame that it all kind of
Thomas Brolin was massive in the 90s as well.
I think the Parma 1999 kit is amazing, home and away.
Which one is that then? So
they changed from white as a home kit to blue and yellow hooped shirts, I think, in about 97-ish.
Just pause for a second. Imagine if Leeds did that. The uproar. Like in the modern era of everything, everyone losing their shit.
Well, it just wouldn't happen, would it?
No.
But they're well worth having a look at, hopefully on screen now. And one of the weird quirks of those kits is that the away kit, which was white with blue and yellow sort of thin bands going around it, is Buffon wore it in goals when they were wearing the home kit.
Oh, wow.
So that, with white socks and shorts, and there's a picture there of him with the real Ronaldo, and doesn't he look good? That's a great kit. And then the other one I found, which is a bit more random, is Oakland Stompers.
I was going to mention them as well.
So this is from like the NASL era.
Wow.
The North American Soccer League era. And this is a team that existed for 1 year and included the likes of, and this shirt that's on here. So it's a white shirt. It's an Adidas trefoil. In NASL, classic style, they've got the name of it in massive letters across the front. They've got a number on the front of the shirt. They've got numbers on the sleeves of the shirt and on the back as well. And down the sleeves, it's just got yellow and blue kind of blocks of colour all going down it. So no Adidas stripes, just these big sections of yellow and blue. And this particular shirt is for a player called Archie Rabuskoff. And for some reason, his name is on the back twice, once at the top and once at the bottom. And the only other fact that I could find about this club is that Roy Wegley's dad played for them.
There you go.
Jeff Wegley.
Wow.
Roy, who scored famously one of the best goals we ever saw at Ellen Road for QPR. Swine.
Good goal, that.
Got a round of applause, didn't he?
Did, yeah.
That was good. Bugger.
So we've not always hated Americans.
I don't. You do.
One of them once got a round of applause at Ellen Road, even though he scored against us.
Well, there you go. Actually, talking about fantasy Leeds kits, imagine the Stars and Stripes US kits that they had in '94. Could we have repurposed that around Jesse's arrival? Put it all in yellow and blue?
I mean, Barnsley had some really horrible stars on the shoulder.
But they brought those back.
Year.
They brought those back. They're old school, weren't they?
Is that what it was?
Yeah, that was a remake of an old 90s one that they brought back, and it was by a designer called Kid Super, who is very big in the fashion world at the moment.
I know that, obviously.
Yeah, I know that too. Yeah. I was just testing everyone else.
Yeah, we knew, just for the benefit of the audience, Cheers, Ed. If you actually, let's just open this out as well and say, if you can think of any sort of obvious fantasy kits that we've overlooked, give us a shout as well. I'd love to see if we've seen some of the French designs, because the French have had some amazing kits across the years, maybe repurposed as Leeds ones, but that's possibly a conversation for another day, that one. But yeah, cheers for joining us on this one. Let's talk kits again soon. In fact, when we see the new Leeds kits properly confirmed, come back and we'll have a little natter about those, and you can pick up our Admiral shirt, the squareball.net, if you want to get your hands on one of those. The sash that is there, that if you're on the video version, Michael's holding it up sideways.
Inadequately.
but again, it's the hallmark of the show.
I could do all the pod like this if you want, just
talking through a shirt.
Just talking through a shirt. It seems to work. There you go.
It seems like the sort of thing Kanye West would do, that, like a big shirt over his face or whatever.
Peas in a pod, aren't we?
We'll see you soon.